think they fixed the air conditioning. How about that? Hi, everybody. How is everyone? Okay. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to be back. In addition to that, there's a matter we've gotten a lot of questions from you recently on, and it's something that we care about deeply here, and that is the situation taking place in Burma. I'd like to talk about this as a follow-on to the two statements that have recently been released from both the State Department and the U.S. UN since the violence erupted there in late August. We are deeply concerned by the troubling situation in Burma's northern Rakhine state. There has been a significant displacement of local populations following serious allegations of human rights abuses, including mass burnings of Rohingya villages and violence conducted by security forces and also armed civilians. We again condemn deadly attacks on Burmese security forces, but join the international community in calling on those forces to prevent further violence and protect local populations in ways that are consistent with the rule of law and with full respect for human rights. We urge all in Burma, including in the Rakhine state, to avoid actions that exacerbate tensions there. We welcome the government of Burma's acknowledgement of the need to protect all communities and its pledge to implement recommendations of the Advisory Commission on the Rakhine State aimed at addressing long-standing challenges that predate the country's democratic transition. We call on authorities to facilitate immediate access to affected communities that are in need of urgent humanitarian assistance. The United States is working through the United Nations and other international organizations to assist tens of thousands of civilians who have fled to southeastern Bangladesh since August the 25th. We are also communicating with Burma's neighbors and other concerned international partners on efforts to end the violence and assist affected communities there. I would be happy to take your questions on that, but first I have one final thing. And I'd like to say we are very pleased to host the leaders of the state of Kuwait here in Washington this week. We got a late start today, as you well know, because we wanted, of course, the President and the Emir of Kuwait to finish up their meetings and their press conference at the White House. As you know, the President just met with His Highness Emir al-Sabah at the White House. And tomorrow here at the State Department, we will host the second annual United States-Kuwait Strategic Dialogue, which is co-hosted by Secretary Tillerson and the first Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Kuwait. Kuwait is a strong regional partner, and we look forward to tomorrow's meeting on education, trade, investment, homeland security, and also military cooperation. We also want to continue to thank Kuwait for its strong diplomatic efforts in trying to resolve the ongoing Gulf dispute. With that, I would be happy to take your questions. We'd like to start today.
Why don't we go right back to Myanmar? You said in your statement just now that the U.S. welcomes the call from the government of Burma for the need to protect all different communities. That certainly hasn't been the predominant message from Aung San Suu Kyi's government in the last several weeks. Does the U.S. have confidence or faith at this point in the efforts or desire of the government of Myanmar to protect the Rohingya community?
Well, I think there are a few things going on there. As you all as journalists who are passionate about foreign affairs well know, that it is a difficult place to get information from. It's difficult to get access to. We'd like to certainly call on the government of Burma to allow better, greater access for reporters and journalists to be able to enter that country and be able to provide accurate information about what's going on the ground. There also remains a humanitarian situation where it is very difficult for humanitarian aid groups to be able to get in and provide the supplies and the support that is necessary. We are continuing to have conversations with the government, not only about the violence there, but also about those issues of journalists and also, perhaps more importantly, the humanitarian aid situation. Our ambassador over there, he and I, Ambassador Scott Marcel, exchanged emails earlier today to talk a little bit about the situation. He's been on a plane and has met numerous times with the government, 3 times in fact, in I believe it was just this week alone. So we remain very engaged in that.
So the U.S. does have tools at your disposal. Obviously, we had a pretty broad sanctions regime against Myanmar. Some of that has been lifted in recent years. Is the U.S. considering putting back sanctions or adding new sanctions to try to push back on these allegations of human rights violations that you were just describing?
I think, and I don't want to sound like a broken record on the issue of sanctions, but it's something that we don't want to get ahead of the conversations that we're having. We're having diplomatic conversations at this point. Any potential sanctions is just not something that I could comment on this time, either assuming that they might happen or might not happen. let's stay on this issue before we switch to the next one.
Burma.
Yeah.
The leader claims, Aung San Suu Kyi, she claims that it's disturbed by fake news.
Say that again? She what?
This whole crisis is stoked by fake news and the trading with fake news and so on. Now, has the U.S. been able to authenticate the calamity that is taking place and the size of it on its own?
That's exactly why I mentioned how difficult it is. I mean, it is a difficult country to get into. It is a difficult country to get around. It doesn't have the roads and infrastructure that many other countries do have. So it's a difficult terrain in order to be able to get the facts on the ground that are accurate. That's why we certainly call on that country to help facilitate journalists being able to come in, aid groups to be able to come in. We work with those organizations, the aid groups, very closely and carefully in order to try to best assess the situation. It's a complicated situation. It's a complicated country and the situation going on there. We don't want to do anything that would inflame tensions, but we hope that we can get more solid information from the ground there. Okay. Hey, Michelle.
Hi. What kind of engagement has Secretary Tillerson himself had on this issue in the last 2 weeks? Have there been phone calls? How has he been involved?
This is something that I know the Secretary cares about. This is something where we have phone calls and diplomatic conversations that have certainly been had at various levels. I don't have any calls to read out for you right now, but as we do, I will certainly let you know. Okay? Hi, Liz.
Hi. It seems as if, we haven't really heard from Secretary Tillerson about any diplomatic efforts going on. Is that because you don't feel like you want to discuss them right now, or is that because the administration is leading with more of a, kind of deterrent message?
On this specific issue, you're talking about Burma?
Oh, sorry.
Are you talking about Burma, or are we moving on to North Korea?
Moving on to North Korea.
Okay, at least wake up this morning.
Sorry.
Okay, let's stick with Burma before we move on to something else, please. Anybody else on Burma? Heather, Patty.
The Secretary hasn't spoken to anyone?
No, I just don't have any calls to read out for you at this time. This is a subject that has come up a lot. A lot of people are talking about this here at the State Department. You all are focusing on this now. Our ambassadors made 3 trips to the Capitol this week alone, and so it's something that we just continue to focus on, and we will continue to monitor it.
Do you have any, do you think Aung San Suu Kyi is doing enough to prevent the violence?
Look, there is access, very, very limited, if any, access to humanitarian needs and equipment and supplies. That would be one of our top concerns. We're concerned about the violence there. That includes allegations of violence conducted by both security forces and civilians. We would like all sides to try to calm the tensions. What we've seen there has been very concerning to the U.S. government, as we care about what is happening to the population there. The U.S. Embassy is following the developments very closely, and let me just again mention that it's very difficult to verify some of the reports in light of the security situation there. I'll leave it at that.
Obviously, we all would like to have more access for journalists in Myanmar, but I mean, you guys have an embassy in Naypyidaw. You're not saying that the U.S. can't determine whether or not these allegations are fake news unless there's more.
Some of these areas are areas of open conflict, which we can't necessarily get out there and get on the ground as State Department employees when there is open conflict there.
Have American diplomats been in Rakhine State to try to look at this?
I can look into that for you. I don't know if we've had anybody exactly right there. Okay, let's move on to something else.
Do you have anything to say on whether you think Aung San Suu Kyi should keep her Nobel Peace Prize?
I wouldn't have anything to comment on that. That would be up to the prize.
Do you urge Bangladesh authority to allow Rohingya refugees in their country, as thousands of Rohingya refugees in the border to get into Bangladesh?
I know it is a difficult situation for Bangladesh, as it is for any country, to absorb refugees. We have provided, I believe it's about $55 million this year to Burmese refugees, not only in Burma, but I believe also in Bangladesh. If I have anything more for you on that, I'll get that to you. Hi there. Hi, Jenny.